$13 million in revenue with a $43 million net loss and a shot to dominate the $3 trillion autonomous vehicle market. Pony AI just went public and the stakes couldn't be higher. The company is supported by the government and is racing to the top with its level 4 autonomy technology. But the question is, can Pony AI challenge those who are sitting in the driver's seat of the AV market? Or is this just another overhyped tech player? In this video, I'm going to break down Pony's financials, future prospects, and the biggest hurdle that it might come across to see whether the stock is a good investment opportunity or just a big waste of money. Hi, my name is Rick Orford, and I help investors like you make more informed decisions. And while I'm not a financial advisor, I have been trading stocks and options since 1999. And if you happen to find this video useful, I invite you to like and subscribe because it'll help other people find the video and learn more about Pony AI as well. By the way, I want to thank the Motley Fool for sponsoring this video. The Motley Fool is a company that provides investing insights and stock recommendations for investors of all skill sets and risk levels. And y'all know how much I love researching new stocks and finding the next best investment. So I'm proud to partner with the Motley Fool to bring you 10 stock picks from their popular product, Stock Advisor. Stock Advisor has beaten the market by more than 5 times, and you can scan this QR code or visit fool.com/RickO to get your 10 stock picks right now. Okay, so now before we get into it, here's a quick company background. Pony AI was launched in 2016 when 2 ex-engineers from Baidu and Google decided to tackle self-driving cars, and somehow they managed to take it off the ground. Well, fast forward to today, the car company is running 3 types of self-driving vehicles: robotaxis, delivery trucks, and of course, personal cars for daily use. As a way to generate more capital, the company went public back in November of 2024 with some very ambitious plans. One of its most significant goals is to have 1,000 robotaxis on the road by the end of 2025. But how likely do you think that they're going to be able to hit the target? Well, I'm going to cover that later. On the technical side, Pony's cars are considered what they call level 4 autonomous. Put things into perspective, level 0 is your regular car with no autonomous features or self-driving functions. On the other hand, a level 5 would be a fully self-driving car, which means no human intervention would be needed. Pony's cars are on level 4, which means they can drive themselves, but you can still take control. And honestly, I kind of still prefer the idea of having the choice. You know, sitting in the driver's seat, having a coffee, and taking control when I prefer. That's my way of doing it. At least that's my thought right now. Anyway, this is not a car review, so I'm going to skip to the more technical parts. Now, onto the financial side, Pony's revenue for the first quarter of 2025 came in at around $13.98 million, which is around 11.6% up compared to the first quarter of last year. That said, revenue for the fourth quarter of 2024 was around $35.5 million, which means revenue for this quarter is around 60% less than the previous one. The good news, however, is that the company managed to narrow down its net losses. In the first quarter of 2025, net loss was around $43 million, which is better than the previous quarter of around $181 million. Also, the loss is mainly driven by the overall increase in research and development expenses, so it's not like the company is bleeding cash for nothing. And to be fair, Pony AI is a relatively new company, so it's probably no surprise that the financials aren't any better than they are at this particular point. But what about the stock? Well, at the time of the recording, the stock trades around $11.80, but since the IPO, the stock has traded between $4.11 and nearly $24, which means the current price is around 44% below its all-time highs. But if you look at the chart more closely, you'll see how the stock nearly doubled from the listing price of $13 per share shortly after its IPO. However, that honeymoon didn't really last very long. Tariffs were announced, and the stock dropped around 80% from its peak. Now, to be fair, the tariffs issues affected pretty much all of the biggest companies out there. Even so, the stock recovered and even pushed back to around $20 as geopolitical issues cooled off. At the time of the recording, it's currently trading closer to its lows than its highs. And if I were to guess, investors maybe aren't sure about the timeline of profitability. It makes sense given that Pony AI is venturing into a relatively new market. So before putting money on the line, make sure you understand the timeline and future prospects of the business, which I'm going to cover in a minute. By the way, the data used in this video is powered by Bar Chart. It's one of my favorite tools that lets you find data on thousands of tickers and allows you to filter by price, volume, sector, and more. So you can find winning trades and opportunities in seconds. I use it every day, and you can set up a free account just by scanning this QR code or by clicking the link in the description. All right, so going back. After days of researching Pony AI, I found 3 significant prospects that I think investors should be aware of. First, the company recently announced its 7th generation Robotaxi. This is a system with a reported 70% reduction in bill of materials compared to its predecessors. To be specific, the computing costs are down by 80% and LiDAR expenses also decreased 70% as well. And this is very important because almost every autonomous vehicle company right now is bleeding cash, primarily because of the hardware needed to develop these cars is just way too expensive. But does that mean Pony AI is cutting costs for a lower quality product? Well, not exactly. According to the report, the 7th generation robotaxis are the first to achieve full scenario level 4 autonomous driving on automotive grade chips. And that means the new system has been proven to withstand real world abuse. It wasn't only tested in controlled environments. And actually, this change is starting to reflect on the company's revenue. Although it's growing from a small base, Pony's fair change revenue for the first quarter increased by over 800% year over year. The next prospect is Pony's partnership deal with Uber, with a goal of launching in the Middle East later this year. But I think this partnership is a little bit peculiar and not entirely strategic to Pony. Hear me out. For Pony, this partnership solves their biggest problem outside of China. With this, they wouldn't need to build their own ride-hailing network from scratch, which means more savings and growth potential for Pony. But Uber's been signing deals left and right with AV companies, and I think that this is Uber's way of catching up with Lyft and Tesla in the robotaxi market. I mean, it looks like Uber is partnering with many AV companies, as it could, because they can't afford to be left behind should one of them succeed. Now, for Pony investors, if my guess is correct, this partnership is a double-edged sword. Sure, it gives Pony instant access to Uber's massive customer base, but it also means Pony is just one of the several AV providers in Uber's platform. So the real catalyst is Pony's tech. If it's good enough to win the majority of those rides, it'll be a huge runway for the company. Otherwise, it won't get the most out of this partnership. The third prospect, however, is a real advantage for Pony. Right now, the company is operating commercially in most major Chinese cities, and it's unprecedentedly supported by the Chinese government. In perspective, Waymo is still crawling through limited access areas in the United States, mainly because of the strict regulatory issues. Pony has even launched a paid service at Beijing's South Railway Station, which is one of Asia's busiest transportation hubs. This head start directly translated to revenue. Robotaxi services increased 200% year over year to around 1.73 million. This is a modest number, but I think it's just the beginning. China's biggest cities like Beijing, Shanghai, and Shenzhen are some of the world's largest markets for ride-hailing services, and Pony has the early bird advantage with actual paying customers. The approval to commercially operate within these cities is a huge advantage for Pony, especially now that their technology continues to scale and costs continue to drop. By the way, if you want to know more about Pony, feel free to check out my Discord server. Now, we can't have an analysis without talking about the risks as well. Well, actually, there are several risks around Pony, but I'd say the most significant one is its competition against Waymo. Yes, I said Pony's got some advantages over Waymo, but hear me out. Even if Pony AI has amazing technology, it may not be able to produce enough vehicles to compete. The 1,000 robotaxis target by the end of 25, yes, it's impressive, but that's until you realize that it's barely enough to cover one major city, especially compared to those major cities in China that I was talking about. And even if it reaches 700 or 1,000 cars in major markets and produces another 1,500 a year, it still won't be able to catch up with Waymo as they already operate at that scale. Also, Tesla is preparing to mass manufacture its own robotaxis. And remember, Waymo is backed by Google. These two giants can flood the robotaxi market, while Pony is still trying to get their first 1,000 cars out on the road. Personally, Pony AI isn't the type of company that I'd bet the farm on, but that's just because I'm a conservative investor. Even so, investors need diversification and a little risk capital, and with Pony's current stock price and market positioning, I think it may deserve a small spot in a long-term portfolio. And there you have it. That's my take for Pony AI. What do you think? Let me know in the comments below. And don't forget to like and subscribe if you found this video helpful. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.